This is Martin Bullard, new member.
Excuse Martin, you say you're a new member?
Yeah, new member to NAPS. Just got a Pudelpointer 2 years ago and getting ready for NAVHDA.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome aboard. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining.
happy to be here.
Where are you
And,
from?
Ohio, just outside Columbus, Ohio, on
Okay,
the east side. Newark, Ohio. It's hometown.
okay. All right. Are you a member of a chapter up, NAVHDA chapter up there?
Yeah, I'm with the group that goes up to Delaware, not the Buckeye chapter.
Mid South
Yeah, Mid South,
or Mid Ohio. Mid Ohio. I'm sorry.
Mid Ohio. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All
I think you're not too far from where I'm at. Then
Where are you at?
I'm staying. I'm staying in Wilmington right now. Oh, just south of there, a little ways.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
just
okay.
about
Go
30
ahead.
miles east of there, of Columbus.
All right.
Okay.
Well, welcome aboard and thanks for joining.
You got it. Thank you for having me.
All right. That's 6:02, and we're going to start this meeting. Want to welcome everybody on behalf of the NAPS board. Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to Todd Rockhold, who's going to be doing the meeting tonight. He's looks like he joined NAVHDA in 2001, been judging since 2013, senior judge and aims and rules clinic leader, judged over 1,000 dogs, member of the NAVHDA judging and testing committee, current NAVHDA director of publications, and a member of the executive committee. So Todd, thank you for getting on here, and we're going to have a discussion about the gun dog test, which is new for this year. And I've got my screen shared, so if you just want to tell me what to do, we'll follow along and let you have the floor.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. Matt called me and asked me if I would do this, and I was happy to do it because I'm a big believer in what the gun dog test is doing for our members and more importantly for our dogs. What I've got here is a slide presentation, 10, 12 slides. I'll go through high level what this test is, and then we'll get to the end and I'm trying to answer any questions that anybody has about specific criteria.
And can everybody see the slides, by the way?
Yep.
Everybody?
So
okay.
I've got an agenda there. If you could just scroll down for me, please. Got an agenda there. I want to talk about how we got here. For those of you that have been around for a while, the UPT is was well known, natural ability, UPT, utility, and then of course the invitational. I'll talk about the gun dog test scorecard, kind of each element of that test. I've got some statistical data that I pulled from the central office that I think is interesting, and I think you will too, in the number of dogs that actually progress past the natural ability level. And then I've got some statistics for the first 6 months. As you know, we just introduced this test here at the first of the year. So if you could scroll down for me, please. The idea behind this test is to show a competent hunting dog for most situations, a real stepping stone from the natural ability test to the utility. There was a lot of, I think, feelings, consensus, chatter, whatever you want to call it, back in the UPT days, that if you were going to train for a utility preparatory test, you might as well just go ahead and train for the UT test. So what we've done is we've eliminated the search for the dead duck that they used in the UPT. We've included decoys, just as you would in a utility test. I'm not sure why they ever had a water test set up without using decoys. And then there is revised retrieving criteria specifically around retrieve of duck, retrieve a shot bird, and retrieve a drag. So the next slide here is the blue card. It's no different really than what the UPT card was, no different than an NA or a UT card. Each element there that is the dog is judged through the day. Thank you for blowing that up. We're gonna look at their eyes, testes. It's a what we consider an intermediate hunting dog. So we're going to ask if they're X-rayed, and as a reminder, the physical attributes check that a team of NAVHDA judges do is just a courtesy. We're in no way breed show judges, schooled in confirmation. And we'll go through each of the elements here of the scorecard. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay.
You got it now, Todd?
I do.
Okay.
So the background, I talked briefly about the UPT. So the judging and testing committee took a look at this in 2023 and started considering ways that we could make this more available to people to progress from the natural ability test to the utility test. I talked about briefly that there was a consensus out there that if you're going to train for the UPT, you might as well just go ahead and train for the utility. Over the past decade, the UPT averaged 82 dogs a year. So I would not call that member engagement. We didn't have a lot of people that were committed to that test or testing at that level. And it seemed like that there was just a lot of opportunity to do more for the membership. So we launched the gun dog test in January 2025 at the annual meeting. So next slide, please. So I got the gun dog test criteria that we talked about. We went to the scorecard. And can you go to the next slide?
I did. The gun dog, or you want the scorecard?
Yep, keep going. Next one. So here is walking through the scorecard. This is what each dog that's participating in the gun dog test is going to be evaluated on by a team of judges. Starting, and this is in those of you that have been around a while and run NAVHDA test. It's at the judging team's discretion in which way the test is run. But this is the way that the scorecard goes. So I put it in order of the scorecard for this conversation. So walking at heel, the purpose is to evaluate the dog's ability to be quiet and approaching a pond. It's a 25-yard heeling course. There's no stakes. The judging team will identify the area for the handler and the dog to heel. The handler will carry a gun up to the blind. Steadiness by the blind, the purpose is to evaluate the steadiness in the presence of game. Ducks are launched typically 40, 50 yards. We're using a 3-sided blind, just like you would in utility tests, just like we did in UPT. And the decoys are used. 6 to 10 decoys are thrown out in front of the blind. That's an addition from the UPT. Retrieve a duck. This is where we want to see the dog able to mark, have the ability to mark and retrieve with desire. This is somewhat new. The handler holds the gun until the retrieve is complete. Back in the day, the handler used to be able to turn around and hand the gun off to someone from the judging team. In hunting situations, most people are going to be holding on to their gun during the retrieve. A dog that we're going to look at for a 4 is going to go directly to the bird and retrieve the hand. The retrieving criteria, and if you've looked at the engine rules, I've run the gun dog test, has been changed. The wording is being changed, and I think you will see a continuation of clarification around retrieving as this test continues to grow. But what I have here on the slide is goes directly to the bird and retrieves the hand or near the handler. 1 or 2 steps is okay. And we could get into that during the question at the end here. Slide, please. Search. This is really no different than what you would do in any other test. We're looking for a dog that's got maturity and purpose and wants to go out and produce birds for the gun. The dog should be working with the handler. This isn't a puppy. We are looking at desire and obedience, cooperation. Pointing, we want a dog to point naturally. People that have what I would call a weak pointing dog, or sometimes blowing dogs into points, and the scores reflect that. There's an acronym used within the judging cadre and in the engine rules. ICUP, the pointing needs to be intense, convincing, unmistakable, effective. If you meet that 4 criteria, you've probably got a good point. Steady to wing. flush and wing for the gun dog test versus the utility wing shot fall. Stay to flush, we're looking for the dog to remain on point. The handler gets up there and is able to flush the bird, and wing remains on point and allows the bird to be shot. If the dog is breaking on the shot, there's no consequence for that. And you can see that on the score. There's only 2 parts to the steadiness total. 1 quiet caution allowed by a handler on approach is allowed. That, you see that a lot with dogs that are kind of in that intermediate area. A dog may be on point, handler approaches, handler says, whoa, good boy, whatever. The dog will actually turn their head and look up at the handler, and that's where you start to see that teamwork and cooperation come together. Slide, please. Retrieve a shot bird. This goes back to the retrieving criteria we talked on the duck. 1 or 2 steps is okay. Gun is held until retrieve is complete. So the question is probably going to be, what if it's 1 or more than 1 or 2 steps? The score will reflect accordingly. If you've got people giving verbal commands and walking towards the dog, all that's going to be affected in the overall retrieve score. But a dog that gets the bird too close to the handler, they can reach down, get it from the dog, maybe even have to pick it up off the ground after a step or 2 is going to be scored accordingly. Retrieve by drag, same way, goes directly to the bird and retrieves the hand or near handler 1 or 2 steps. Okay. Slide, please. And this criteria here is, judged in the utility and was in the utility prep too. The nose, desire, cooperation, obedience. We're not looking at a finished dog performance here in the gun dog test because of the steadiness that we talked about, and there is no search for a duck, but we are looking for cooperation in the dog willingness to work with the handler, response to the handler, stays on task, holds point, etc. And the obedience, the dog heels, stays at the blind, responds to voice and whistle commands, heels, etc. Slide, please. These are some statistics I pulled from the central office. I think they're very interesting in light of what I believe and what NAVHDA believes that the gun dog test is going to do. So at top left of this slide, in 2017, there were 2,055 natural ability dogs tested. So if you just go on the theory that in 2017, you're going to test natural ability. In 2019, you have a 2-year-old dog, 2 or 3-year-old dog, you may test UPT. And then 2020 or 2021, you have a 3 or 4-year-old dog, you may be preparing for utility. So if you follow me here, 2017, we had 2,055 puppies tested. Go forward for that with, let's just say that same group of dogs. In 2019, there were only 66 dogs in all of NAVHDA that tested UPT. It was not a popular test, and people didn't believe it was a useful test. Fast forward from there, go to let's just say 2021. Of the 2,055 puppies tested in 2017, only 719 dogs made it to utility level. Less than 35%. So think about not only the members that are missing out, moving on to that next level, but the dogs that are not being trained to the performance that we all want in a utility dog. I've got some stats here coming up in the last slide that will show that the gun dog test is going to be well beyond anything the UPT has been in the last 10 years. Slide, please. So for this test has been going for just 6 months. So I worked with the office last week when I was preparing this. From January to June this year, already through 30 June, 105 people have run the gun dog test. With our new portal in place, we have the ability to look in and see the number of people that are planning to run the gun dog test between now and the end of the year. There's 165 people that have signed up with their dog to run the gun dog test from July to December. That portal's fluid. That number is going to continue to grow. And we fully expect that more than 300 dogs will run the gun dog test in the first year. And remember, UPT averaged about 80 over the last decade. So I think we're clearly heading in the right direction, and it's providing a test that our members obviously want to participate in, but it's also giving them a true stepping stone to go from natural ability to that next level. So with that, that's the end of my slides. I'm happy to try to answer any questions anybody may have about the slides or about this test.
On the water portion of the gun dog test,
Yes.
dog can break on the shot.
Dog can break on the shot and will be scored accordingly. If you look at, it's a good question, and I know that Matt attached the aims and rules. So if you go to page 30, the dog is expected to stay by the blind until set for the retrieve, but may still receive a maximum score if it leaves at the shot. So at the shot is the answer.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering if you're in the gun dog test, the water portion, they launch the bird. I assume you're shooting at the apex, like most
Yes,
times
yes.
you shoot at the apex, or let's just say before you shoot, you launch the bird. Dog takes a step or two. Is that going to be a ding?
No.
No.
We're looking for that. We're not looking for that finished performance. And, for those of you that have run utility, you've seen dogs do a little bit of a dance around the blind and still receive a 3 or 4. So when it comes to an intermediate level dog, we're not looking to have so much obedience in this test that people aren't.
I think this test actually adds a real step between NA and utility, and I'm glad you guys put this in because I think it's a fantastic format. I really like the setup, and I've seen it run once, and it looked like I was at an NA test today. They ran one gun dog there, and it was nice to see it. I thought it was a pretty good test.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that because I wanted NAVHDA to do something to engage members. When you're going from 2,000 puppies and only 82 people are averaging at the next level, we're missing something.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, well, think of it this way at the water is we're just being consistent with how we're judging the dog in the field. If the dog breaks on shot in the field, there's no negative impact to their steadiness score. So now down at the blind, dog breaks on the shot, no negative impact to their steadiness score. Okay?
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. That's good. That's a good point. Glad you're on here. That is a really good point. We're being consistent from the field to the water. And, I'll be honest, there's been a little bit of feedback that some people are not happy that the duck search was removed. But remember, this is still a test that tests a dog before and after the shot on land and in the water. there's no live ducks or duck search at the Invitational. So if our flagship test doesn't require it, I don't know why we require it for an intermediate gun dog.
Well, I like what you said earlier about, and I had the same feeling, and I thought, well, if I'm going to train for UPT, I might as well train for UT. So
Yeah.
I myself, as a member, and I just overlooked the UPT test because I felt, that was, if my dog was ready, I was just going to go in UT.
Yeah, and Larry could probably attest to this too. I mean, there's a lot of people that all of a sudden in their training didn't think they were ready for the utility and just thought they would run the UPT. And guess what? They weren't ready for the UPT either. So this test, again, I believe provides a really good opportunity for our members to be confident in their training and go to the next level. And I see some names on here. I know some people have been around for a while. There's a significant resource when it comes to training a utility dog. You got to have access to duck search water. It takes a team to train a utility dog. You got to have ducks. You got to have water. So this test takes a little bit of that burden away in order to keep people engaged and involved.
Anybody have any questions? Well, you got some good guys on here to ask because they can really help you.
I just have a comment.
Okay, Calvin Hart.
My comment was, one could argue that even the duck search at the utility level really doesn't simulate most hunting scenarios.
Yeah. One could argue that, we're being recorded. So, and I am speaking on behalf of NAVHDA because this is a NAVHDA test. I think that we've talked about in the past, because you're not in the utility test, for example, you're not required to retrieve the duck. In fact, those of us that have run a bunch of utility dogs, sometimes we just want our dog to go out and search for 10 minutes and not find the duck. There's been conversations over the years about, should we just have a water search and maybe not even have a live duck out there? Or do we require in some way, for a utility dog to retrieve a duck? I don't disagree with you, Calvin. There's a lot of those conversations going on a lot of tailgates over the weekend.
Yeah, I think it kind of also ties into why they got rid of the shackled duck at the invitational level. Having been a duck thrower at the invitational for the shackled duck, part of it was there were a lot of inconsistencies, right?
Right.
I've been there where I've seen a judge tape the duck really tight, and you throw it and it hits the water and never moves. You see a judge tape the duck real loose. As soon as that duck hit the water, it was gone, off to the races.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a mandatory retrieve, right? It was a mark. They got a mark, and it was a mandatory retrieve. And it was probably the most exciting part of the whole invitational.
Right.
The crowds would be there to watch the shackled duck because it was so exciting. But I mean, there were really nice dogs that failed because they got a duck that could really move, or it wasn't taped consistently, or
the inconsistency was the argument to go away from that. I was actually a pro shackled duck guy for a lot of reasons, because I don't believe that there's exact consistency in puppy natural ability tracks with pheasants. But you're exactly right, that the organization moved that way in hopes of being more consistent.
And I think the double mark is probably more realistic anyway.
It really is a good hunting situation. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions about the gun dog test? What the judging team may be looking for?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Chuck Norton. I'm with Northern California NAVHDA. Regarding the retrieve of the duck and the handler holding the weapon, there's been a little bit of back and forth about whether the handler can hand the judge the weapon during the retrieval of the duck or only to give hand signals to the dog. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, what the expectations are?
Well, the expectation is the handler hold the gun until the retrieve is completed. But I think what you're saying is there's maybe a scenario where the dog misses the mark and the handler would need to use hand signals to try to get the dog back to the retrieve. Is that what you're?
Yeah, there was a judge there. We were doing some training this weekend, and he brought up that there might be some discussion about whether the handler needed to possess the weapon during the retrieve. It's clear in the Ames book that you can, hand it to the judge to give hand signals. But has there been any conversation about modifying that for the, for retrieving the duck from the dog?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I mean, I could see, in the scenario you're giving, that if somebody had to throw a rock, for example, and was trying to pick rocks up off the ground to throw to get the dog back to where it needed to retrieve, the judging team may ask to take the gun away from the handler just for safety. But
Sure.
yeah, the expectation is that the handler holds the gun through the retrieve.
Okay, thank you.
That was my understanding. Even under hand signals, the handler still has to retain the gun.
Yeah, and they may. I mean, I would. You've been around long enough too, Larry. There's always people that maybe shouldn't be holding a gun for that long. And if they're throwing rocks or doing something else to get the dog's attention, the judging team may, they don't have to, but they may take the gun in the interest of safety.
Well, if they were just turned around and say, could you hold this? I would just space it half the time and grab it from them anyway.
Well,
It'd
yeah.
just be a mistake on my part, but if you do something one way for, 15 years, it's tough to stop sometimes.
It is. And you're always trying to do the right thing for the dog and the handler.
On the retrieves, you had mentioned that there's going to be there's some continuing discussion or clarity that's going to be coming on those.
There is. We've received some feedback. What is a step? What if it's 2 or 3 steps? And there's going to be some clarification coming around that. There's going to be an article in the August VHD kind of outlining these statistics that I shared with you this evening about how popular it is. And then I'd say in the September, October edition, there'll be more retrieving criteria and then communicating with the judges through the emails.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Rockhold?
I got IT questions if you wanted to move on, but that's about it.
I gotta have a funny story with the duck search if you guys want to hear one.
Go ahead.
So this is just prior PCNA experience. So we, in preparation for the duck search, my neighbor raises ducks. We had gotten this duck from her. Long story short, it was a diving duck, and by virtue, like a flightless duck. It was a great duck that captured the essence of the duck search because it would always evade the dog, and we did not need to modify wing clip or shackle the duck. Didn't matter where the duck was in the water. It would, let's just say 5 feet, 10 feet in front of the dog, dog's on the duck, bird goes down, kind of reappears in another area in the pond, then the dog has to kind of recalibrate, sniff out, and actually again figure out where that duck is. So it kind of interesting. I think where you source your ducks, but beyond that, the species of ducks kind of is a funny thing on it. And it's like, to me, the essence of the duck search is just searching a pond kind of through and through and like find an evading duck. And then the funny thing was with this species of duck, I can't remember what it was. I can find out, but it was a perfect duck. It was a perfect duck. The duck lived on, didn't have to do anything, but just let the duck be the duck. And then we actually have got a pretty good training tool out of it. And then the reality is it probably would have been a really good testing duck too. Because I think there's something to be said about, okay, dog hears one shot, finds duck after 2 minutes, but doesn't really capture the scope of that 10-minute search. But again, it just, what I keep ruminating on was just the type of duck you use matters.
Well, if there's no more questions, I'll let you get to your business meeting. Matt, I do appreciate the invite. I hope you guys have found a little bit of this helpful. And if I can ever answer any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your time and doing this presentation, Todd. And
yeah,
I thought as well, worth anybody's time that is thinking about, moving past the natural ability test. I did run a utility preparatory test back in the day with my oldest dog, and I think, and I've said this multiple times, I think I learned more from that test than any other test that I've run so far. Now, so I've done a few utility tests since then and got a big test coming up. But
yeah.
I think these steps are really important. If you're going to be serious about getting a well-trained gun dog, which is I got to see the very first gun dog test run, and one of my buddies was fortunate enough to be the first prize one gun dog test recipient.
Yeah.
But so I think there's a lot of value, and I do appreciate NAVHDA's striving to reach out to its membership on this level and to be a better source.
Yep. So, I think it's going to be a good thing. We're gonna have a lot more data here in a couple of years, but the way this thing is taking off and the way our membership has grown, I think this is going to be a very useful test for a lot of people.
I think where UPT and probably even this gun dog test are undervalued is the opportunity it gives the handler to learn and grow in preparation for UT. And Todd, you can speak to this. How many times have you seen handler errors by somebody in their first utility test negatively impact their scores because they weren't ready? Dog was, they weren't.
That's right. Yeah, handler confidence is on display at every test, and hopefully this gun dog test will help people, especially people with their first dog, help them with their confidence to get out in front of a group of people and a group of judges and show their dog, because we all know that it's a big step between natural ability and utility.
Well,
and it's pretty fun.
Speaking of perhaps on behalf of NAPS, we really appreciate you coming on here and having this discussion, and we always value Larry Stone's input too as a judge, and he's been a wealth of information for us too. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, it was nice to see Larry's name on here when I popped on. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Todd. Anybody else wants to stay on and chat for a little bit and have any questions? I mean, we can sit on here a few more minutes or we can go, but Todd, you're welcome to sign off if you want. If you got something to do.
Yep.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care.
Anybody else have any discussions you want to talk about tests or anything, or we still have several people, 18 people on. So,
Larry, you still on here?
Yeah.
I want to know what you were about to ask him about invitational. Or
You didn't want to talk about it. I'm just curious as where they're leaning on going, because I hear all kinds of rumors, and because you know that it's growing and it's very difficult to put on an invitational with 150 or 160 or more dogs.
Right.
So one of the criteria is reducing the number of dogs that are eligible. And you do that by making qualifying more difficult one way or another, or by ranking dogs as based on how they qualified. Like basically a 204 with only in their first utility test would be the highest priority to place in the invitational. And then you would just kind of go from there. So they're looking at all kinds of things from what I understand, but I wanted to get a little more information on how they were leaning. And because personally, and you're probably not aware of this, but I wrote up a motion and my chapter presented it at the annual meeting in Vegas, probably 6 or 7 years ago, to do a regional invitational, or actually two, the central US and then a far west, because the far west participation, about 52% of your UT1 dogs run in the invitational, but west of the continental divide that drops to 26%, and mostly because of the distance and time and cost that were associated. So we tried that. It wasn't very well received, and I submitted a concept like that again to them, to the EC through the judging and testing committee. Because I think that's the solution, is to go with more regionalized invitationals, make it more available to people, rather than just, just making it harder to qualify and reducing the number of participants just didn't strike me as a valid solution.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. I mean, there's, because they're trying to grow NAVHDA as an organization, correct?
Well, Matt, you just heard numbers where we're testing more dogs and we're running more dogs. This gun dog test is very popular, and we're going to do 3 times the number of UPT, the average UPT dogs from the last 6 or 8 years. Well, that's all growth and burden on local chapters. That's not growth and burden on the NAVHDA International, which is where the invitational lies. So,
well, Larry, in the format that you suggested, having a regional type invitational, would you have dogs that qualify at the regionals go to a grand invitational, or would that regional invitational serve the same thing as they have now as a?
Well, the concept back when we submitted it was very, very simple. And if you read your aims on the invitational, it used to be, I think, chapter 7. It's not anymore because they changed it. But the invitational is addressed as a test some 7 times in the very first page. And one of the things that my position was, it's a test. It's not some sort of event. See, it's kind of grown and become this big event, and it's because of its size. It's frankly a burden to put on. I mean, the number of judges you have to have, lodging, meals, transportation, dog entries. It just goes on and on. The regional was just that it's still just an invitational. It's the very same test, just held at a different location. It would almost be like you would have one in Ohio, Iowa, and New Mexico in the same year, just on different weeks. But for the sole purpose of accommodating more dogs. You know, if you, it would be easier, I think, to put on 3 tests of 50 than 1 test of 150.
Not to mention the burden on the chapter that's hosting it. You know, NAVHDA, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly, NAVHDA does not supply the guns for the handlers to carry, the launching equipment, all those things that are needed to put the test on. That is the responsibility of the chapter that's hosting the event.
Yes.
So that can be a big financial burden to a chapter who's never done it before, and suddenly they have to come up with all the stuff to host 150 dogs versus maybe a smaller test where they only have 50. You know, fewer judges, less equipment needed, fewer fields. You know, in Ohio at Mingo, it was fields A, B, and C all running simultaneously for the field braces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and at the same time they were running, you know, the double mark and the blind. So they had to have handler guns at all of those in case a handler not all handlers bring their break open or hunt with a break open. So, but they have to have a break open at the tests.
Well, if you want to be surprised, go to NAVHDA's website, and they have the invitational criteria there. So if your chapter was interested in submitting a bid to put on an invitational, and they go into it and there's detail, they'll tell you how many, and they'll even say double barrel, you know, either over and under, side by side, single trigger, you know, single selective trigger, and so on. They'll go over how many tents or canopies you have to have for shade.
Bird bags.
Yes, bird bags, all of these things. And it is, crud, it's like the number of clipboards. I think they even have it written, and I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's like you have a chest for each event. And in that chest would be, you know, the 4 clipboards that they need, or the 5 clipboards, because you got 3 judges, plus you generally have a field marshal there, and you might have somebody else that's just logging people in, because, you know, as you finish one event, you rotate over to another event, and as you get there, they log you in and get you in the order to run. But anyway, I would just hope they're going to settle on something like that. I mean, I've heard some interesting, because I've talked to other judges, and let me throw this out at you. And Calvin, I'm interested in what you have to say. So we're going to do the utility test, but we're going to do the retrieve of duck, and from the same point, do the duck search. So you go through your remain by blind, or walking at heel, remain by blind, steady by blind, retrieve a duck, and now you go back down to the water's edge, shoot 1 more shot, and send your dog on duck search. From that very same spot, right after doing the 50-yard retrieve.
This is the proposal,
I could see that negatively impacting some dogs. I could see it positively impacting some dogs. You know, I think some of your smart dogs, it would more negatively impact, because they already know they went out there and found the duck already. It's not out there.
Is this a discussion or a proposal, or is this what's going?
That was proposed by a judge I know.
Okay.
And for the sole purpose of making the utility test more difficult, and therefore having fewer dogs qualify.
So he's
a lot of that sounds like what VHDF does. I mean, it sounds similar to what VHDF does,
And-
from
and-
what I understood.
Yeah, and it could be, I don't know.
If
I'm
I
not
don't know if you're familiar, are you familiar with that, Larry, that organization? I'm sure you
No,
are.
I'm familiar with the organization, but not a lot on their advanced testing.
Right. Okay. Well, they do 3 different events from the same starting point on, I think, on their invitational level test or whatever. And I'm not that versed in it, but I just heard some discussion about it.
It's all of these things are interesting, and if you were a newbie coming in and you go, oh, so that's the event, we're going to go from the retrieve a duck and then straight into the duck search, you would just accept it, and you would create a training method to accommodate that. I'm kind of with Calvin. I think for a lot of dogs, I think the experienced dogs, I mean, I don't think they'd bat an eye. I think the dogs that get duck hunted heavy still aren't going to have a problem with it. They're so used to going up, picking up the closest duck, coming back and moving out and going after the further fall. It's just what they do. But still, there are things I suggested, trying to make the invitational a little lighter, and because NA's 20 minutes, Gun Dog's 25, utility is 30, but for the invitational, we jumped to 60. Why don't we just go to 45? That's taking an hour out of the field each day for each
Every 4
judging team.
dogs.
So, well, because part of their thing is they have a hard time coming up with judges that want to, walk the field for 8 hours a day for 5 days. That's,
Yeah.
heck, I won't do a 3-day puppy test anymore. I'll do a 3-day test, but not 3 days of puppies.
Well, my argument, which is an unpopular probably position, is I think that NAVHDA should just do away with the invitational. I don't see the purpose in it. I don't think what I see happening is people are wanting to breed in VC to VC with the assumption that that's going to produce a better dog. And I don't agree with that. I think people are overlooking dogs that are prize 2, prize 3 dogs that are really nice dogs that could bring to the table just what they're looking for, but they're overlooking those dogs because they want, because it sells better, right? If you have VC grandparents and a VC sire and a prize 1 dam, it sells better. People think that they're buying a better dog because of the titles, when that may not necessarily be the case.
Well, it may not necessarily be the case. It does provide, I think, more judgment on the performance of the ancestors to give you an idea of what kind of performance you hope to expect. But Cal, we've talked about this 100 times. How many times have we've seen people put together this breeding that on paper it's like, oh my gosh, you can't do any better than this, and it's just a dud litter.
Right.
It happens because it's
Sure.
not.
We
not
can't control
scores.
genetics.
It's not test scores. It's it's I put it. It's genetics plays a big role, obviously. But I look at it as it's like dogs. When you breed like dogs, you get like results. But when you breed polar opposites, I don't care what their test scores are, the opportunity for consistency dramatically
Changes.
reduces.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, who you put the dog with, right? The owner.
Oh gosh,
or if the owner sends the dog to a professional trainer or whatever, and like I've said, is one of the things I've said is the I wish NAVHDA had a category in their testing that they could evaluate the attitude or the manner of work that the dog is, So when you see those dogs that are with a trainer that's heavy-handed and forcing the dog to do all this stuff, which could arguably lie on abusive, but the dog gets a prize one because he's too afraid to make a mistake. Is that really is that the kind of dogs we want to produce?
well, it's we've all seen those. I watched Griffon walk through a 4 duck search. I don't know how the hell he did it. I'm sitting there judging the dog, and I'm going, somebody staked that frickin' duck out in the marsh. That is the only way that thing came back, because that was in stealth mode, moved very slowly. At about 8 minutes, you see this head come out of the cattails, and here comes this dog. Even when it came out of the water, I don't think not much more than a ripple. It was.
Yeah.
And I'm going, all right. I mean, the dog did the work, but
right.
Duck was probably sleeping, and it was probably a wild duck asleep, and he snuck up on it. I don't know. But heck, anyway, yeah, VC to VC is nice on a pedigree, and it's great if it works, but sometimes those things don't work. We did.
I just fear that this trend, which seems to be a trend starting to happen with our breed, it's going to reduce genetics to some degree potentially, because dogs are going to get overlooked. Good dogs are going to get overlooked.
I think there's a risk of that. I'm more concerned of the opposite, and that's the common sire syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Get that
popular sire.
Yeah, get that drag going. So I get a little concerned about that, more so than dogs that get overlooked. Hey, I mean, they have their own criteria. If Doc was a brown dog, he would have sired 4 times the number of litters that he did.
Right.
But, he was black, so he didn't. Oh well. I got a lot of nice dogs out of him. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I just think of like the scenario, like if the mentality of breeding VC to VC happened 12 years ago, Mac may not have been used as much as he was because he was a prize 3 dog, and he could have been a prize 1 dog if I would have wanted to retest him and stuff. But my goal was always just to make him eligible for breeding because I knew what kind of dog he was.
Yeah. Well, I had a prize 3 male whose natural ability average was, I believe it was 109.5. That's what his natural ability pups averaged. And I'm the only one that ever used him. So I understand what you're saying completely. Well, hey, I'm cooking dinner, so I got to run. You guys have fun. Yeah, good talking to you, Tim.
Thank you,
Matt.
Appreciate it. Well, anybody else have anything they want to contribute to? I know we've gotten off of, this was originally planned to be a gun dog thing, but the good thing about us is we're a member organization, so members can contribute, and we like to listen. So if you got something to say, go ahead and say it.
Does anybody? I mean, I can think of 2 poodle pointers that have run the gun dog test. Does anybody? Can anybody think of any more?
Yeah, there was a dog from my kennel that ran. There's been 2 dogs from my kennel that ran. One got, I think, a prize 1, and the other one didn't prize. There was the one that didn't prize was he's a first time handler, and he had ran the natural ability test and done well, and he thought that his dog would be ready for a gun dog, but he just didn't have her prepared. The retrieving, he didn't. I don't think he had force fetched her or took her through a trained retrieve of any type, and that's where I believe where she bit the test pretty hard.
We had Muddy.
Muddy, I think, got a prize 1. Yeah,
No,
but
no.
the other one, what did Muddy get? A 150 prize 1 or something? I thought.
I thought she was a 150 prize 3. Because
Yeah,
168.
I'd have to look.
Now I know Joe Bozolak's on here, or was. I think he's off now. I think 168 is the max score on Gun Dog.
Yeah, but they don't have to get a max score to get a prize 1.
Right.
That is correct on the max score. But I didn't know if anybody heard of anybody else running gun dog, Pudelpointer wise.
Yeah, I just know of maybe 3 or 4 dogs.
It looks like a nice test.
I guess I have a question. Are we looking to, I'm sorry, this is Matt Eveleth. Are we looking to get rid of the utility test? Is that, or is this just another test in preparation?
You mean as far as like the requirements for
Correct.
NAPS, or how do you mean
Correct.
on that?
Correct. Yes.
No, not for males.
Okay.
No, there's been no discussion that I've heard that's going to change the utility requirement for males. We've got to adjust our verbiage for say you have a female that's, not run a natural ability test, but runs gun dog test. We have to include verbiage on saying what would be a qualifying score. And that's going to have to be a member driven. Well, there will be a
motion.
There will be a motion coming forth. And now the language of that motion, I don't know yet, but it will happen at the next annual meeting.
Okay.
Which, motions to change things in the bylaws can only be done by the membership at annual meetings. So
with this new test, and forgive me for being ignorant on this, but the Versatile Hunting Dog Federation, they got a test going, which I was just a gunner for, helping out, and that's completely different from what we were talking about earlier. Correct? I mean, that one didn't seem like it was near as strict.
These guys, I tell you.
So are you talking about it like the puppy level of that?
Yeah, it was the puppy level.
Or which level?
It was the puppy level.
Calvin.
Okay.
Well, there was 2. There was a puppy level, and then there was one that was I guess in my opinion would be more of a utility type level. But the duck search, from what I was listening to just now and what we did at the field, was different. And I guess I'm confused on the 2 different tests there.
Oh.
I think I'm lost in like VHDF is a completely different organization with different tests. I've never seen a VHDF test. So I don't even know what they look like.
Okay.
Eventually, maybe I'm answering your question, Matt.
Go ahead.
Eventually, we've got to be prepared for people that do not run NAVHDA, but have nice poodle pointers that test in VHDF. Eventually, we're going to have to set forth criteria as a minimum requirement for, those qualified dogs, which is a different scoring system altogether. It's a 1 to 10 instead of a 1 to 4. I know that.
Yes.
Run to 12, isn't it? 1 to 12, just like VPP.
It's 1 to 10, but they can have a 10 plus.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Is what I've been told. I think it's a 11. think you can have an 11.
Because like in the VPP, if you're JGHP tests, it's a 12-point scale. Rarely does anybody get a 12.
Right.
Rarely does it really anybody even get an 11. And like when I ran Mac in his VJP test, he got an 11 in tracking, and I just remember the judges arguing a long time after his second, because you have to track twice in that test. And he had two beautiful tracks, and I'm like, what could they be possibly arguing about? There was no doubt that he tracked, that I was just thinking we got a 10, let's move on. But they ended up giving him 11, and I guess that was the argument. Did he get 11? Did he do better than 11? But
Sure.
But from what I understand is to get a 12 in that test, in the VJP track, it has to be a really exceptional track for a long distance. In here in Ohio or in this general area with cottontails, it's just not going to happen. You have to be out west where the jackrabbits are to really even have the potential to get a track long enough and hard enough to achieve that score.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, 150 prize too was what the gun dog result was.
So just for everybody's information going forward, also, our next member roundtable, I believe, is in September. Or no, yeah, September. And I'm working on getting a member of the BHDF to do a presentation on that organization.
Okay.
I met the guy last weekend, and he's, I just got to get everything worked out, but that is the goal. So we can have more of a discussion or, question and answer about what that organization is about and how the tests are done. So, and it's interesting. I mean, I think it's becoming more and more popular. But
it is interesting, and listening to the judges, I mean, obviously they're part of the organization, so they're very high on it, and they were saying this is like the absolute truest way to really judge a dog and its natural hunting ability. But I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm biased. What I watched, I'm thinking most of the dogs that I've watched go through utility that I've been around would just blow this test away. I mean, I just felt like it was, I don't know. Again, maybe I'm biased, but I just felt like it was very
Think it was too easy?
lax, a little easy. Just my opinion, just my uneducated opinion. I've only seen it once, but
I know that
pretty simple.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, I'm good.
We've talked for even before NAPS existed. We would talk about, because in the organization that I was with previous to NAPS, we would talk about, because it stated a 105 or better, or a utility prize or whatever, or the European equivalent, and for breeding requirements.
Correct. Okay.
And there were always discussions circling about what is that European equivalent, because VJP, HZP, and VGP. So VJP and HZP are essentially both puppy tests.
Mm-hmm.
There's age requirements for both of those tests that they have to meet. With the HZP being for a partially trained dog, there's 5 retrieves that are all mandatory. If they fail one retrieve, they fail the entire test. But there's no steadiness involved in the test. And even at their VGP test, which is a 2-day utility test, which has the fox in the box and all the forest work and the blood tracking and everything, those dogs do not have to be steady to wing, shot, and fall, because they don't shoot any birds. They automatically assume that the dog will be steady because he's trained to that level already.
Sure.
But they don't actually test it, So we've always talked about, for let's say a Pudelpointer in the VPP, if I'm still correct in my memory, they have to, let's say they get a certain score, a passing score in VJP, which is the first puppy test, and then they get a passing score in HZP. So that qualifies them for breeding so far, but then they also have to pass the hardness test, which is killing a predator.
Oh yeah.
And they have to pass the breed show, so their confirmation test. So they have to pass all of those things to be eligible. Where
Right.
what was happening here in the States, when we would say European equivalent, most of the dogs that we were qualifying through European equivalent were the imports, right?
Right.
People will import a female from another country that she had 2 litters in the country she was from. She was no longer able to produce any more litters in that country because they had a rule that says you can only produce two litters or so many puppies. So that kennel would send her here, for good money, and she could breed here. So we would, instead of having her retest in NAVHDA, we accepted her test scores. That made her eligible for breeding. But they really didn't ever talk about the breed show or the hardness test. It was just, in most times, it was their VJP score and their HZP score. Some of them would have VGP scores, but not always.
Okay.
If that makes any sense at all. I've tested. I have never done the VGP test for a fully trained European dog. I've never done the blood tracking and the fox in the box and all of that stuff. I've not done that. I've done the 2 lower levels, and people will ask, is it a better test? I think the VPP guys want to utilize that test to say that it's a better test, right? It's kind of part of their marketing. But I wouldn't say that it's a better test than NAVHDA. I wouldn't say that it's a worse test than NAVHDA. I would say they're looking for different attributes in the working dog than what NAVHDA is looking for, right?
Gotcha.
In Europe, the retrieval of the game, the recovery of game, is far more important. And they breed dogs for that. They want cooperative dogs that are going to be tenacious on their tracking and retrieving and stuff, so they can recover the game. Where in NAVHDA it seems to be more, the focus tends to be a little bit more on a little more work before the shot. I mean, the utility test, I always say, is about 80% retrieving and 20% obedience, in the most simplest terms.
Okay.
But we put more emphasis on steady the wing shot and fall, the field search and the style of point and the intensity of point than they seem to in the European tests.
Makes sense.
So just a different, when I look at, I'm still a member of the VPP. I've been a member, I think, since it started here in Group North America. But, I get the quarterly newsletters and I look at the photos of the dogs, and every once in a while I see a good photo of a dog on point that I like, a nice stylish point, but that's what they look for in a point. If you read their breed standard, they want a tail that comes level, straight off the back, straight back, like what I would call a 9 o'clock tail.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually will ding a dog for a more elevated tail. So like if one of my dogs that might have an 11 or 12 o'clock tail, which I think is very stylish and attractive,
right,
they may actually ding that dog because its tail's too high. But if it's an 8 o'clock tail where it dips downward, which I think is just disgusting, they don't care. It's irrelevant to them. They're not going to ding it.
Chris, to answer your question, yes, we'll see if we can make the recording available. Okay, go ahead, Calvin.
No, I would just, they look for something different. The two tests are both quality tests, but different. So I would think that with VHDF being a test that was started by disgruntled NAVHDA members, from what I was told, the test would be similar, but it's probably a quality test. It's just going to be a little different.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know if they're looking for different attributes or what they're looking for. Hopefully, there's one I'm told is there's a VHDF chapter now in Cincinnati. So I'm hoping to maybe see one of their tests.
Sure.
They also do confirmation. And I'm just telling you what the guy told me. So
yeah,
that is an option. Or part of their system is confirmation, measurement confirmation.
Yeah. And I think that's, as you know, I've been pushing that for NAPS. I think that we need to invest in our membership somehow to educate some key people somewhere in different parts of the country so we can get away from NAVHDA judging of attributes. And because a lot of times they're wrong, I think, at least in coat. And at least give a true judgment of the dogs for our members and the owners. So we can't eliminate dogs like they can in the VPP and stuff, but at least we can give the information, and that might help us produce better confirmation in the future.
I don't know. I have heard some talk amongst some of the NAVHDA people that there's some suggestions to get away from the attributes.
I mean, I've made that suggestion a few times to different people. I don't know what education that the judges have to go through to be able to judge attributes. I'm venturing to guess it's not as rigorous as I think it should be. When you see that, like, there's a dog, I forget the dog's name, but from the story that I was told, was that the dog had a bump on its eyelid and had surgery to have the bump removed. And you look at its test score card, and it says that the eyelid was surgically repaired due to entropia or ectropia or something. And from what I was told, is that's not accurate. But once the judges put it on a scorecard, it's like permanent. NAVHDA hates to correct that stuff.
Yeah, see, I think that's an insult to veterinarians across the country when you have a board certified doctor that sends a letter to NAVHDA and they'll take the word of a judge over a veterinarian. That is an insult, if you ask me. And I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel about it. I think it's terrible.
But you got to look at it on the other side too. I mean, how many people are completely dishonest about stuff? Not necessarily on our side, but I've seen it on other things. Cryptorchid, monorchid type stuff. I mean,
well, if a guy wants to put his license on the line for something that trivial, I guess I don't know. But I see what you're saying.
I think it's a double-edged sword either way you look at it. I think it's got its pros and its cons.
Well,
could I? I'm sorry to hold you guys up. Could I ask 2 more questions that are kind of off that topic?
Sure.
One being the guys that are having that are breeding. Do you guys remove the dew claws or do you keep them intact?
I have left dew claws for at least 10 years.
Okay. And then 2, we have a 10-week-old pup that decided to eat a dryer sheet. Um, and I've been waiting a day and a half now for it to pass. It hasn't. He's eating good. He's drinking good. He's got soft serve stools at this point, and he did vomit last night in his kennel. But he's got a ton of energy yet. He's not lethargic. So I'm wondering, what I could give him to maybe help pass this dryer sheet. And I apologize for these goofy questions, but
I don't have an answer for you.
no. Okay.
No, we heard yesterday.
That's about all I got.
I don't know what to do on that. It's interesting. I'd call a vet now, so.
Yeah, the vet, they weren't too concerned about it unless he was getting lethargic and vomiting and not eating. And I'm like, well, he's not vomiting, or he did vomit, but he is eating and he's not lethargic, but not meeting all the criteria. But I guess it's been a day and a half or almost 2 days now. It's just wondering if anybody else ever ran into something where the dog ate, a sock or a glove or whatever, and how they got it to pass.
I know that Jeff George might be a resource for you.
Okay.
He had a dog that ate multiple socks, but I think they were all surgically removed because they were a foreign body situation where it wasn't going to pass.
Sure. Okay. Well,
My pup, he's 11 months and he's eaten several socks, and we normally find him in the yard about 3 or 4 days later because he pukes them up.
yeah.
Have you tried hydrogen peroxide?
I haven't tried hydrogen peroxide. By this time, it's got to be in his intestine. It's not like in his belly, so I don't feel like it's going to pull it out from there. I think it's just either got to pass through or, I guess we'll have to do surgery if need be, but hoping that's not the case. But anyway, I didn't mean to take up your time. I just thought if somebody had an idea or somebody had ran into that once before, they could shed some light on it.
I've seen some things, like I've read some things on the internet about with the hydrogen peroxide stuff. So maybe try that. I mean, might help, might not help.
Right.
Just a thought.
Yep, I appreciate it.
My puppy has his dew claws, if that the one I just got from Larry Stone. So he said he said he normally removes them, but he thought he would quit doing that. That's what he said.
That's what I've been hearing is the trend is they're kind of stopping doing it, but
now you duck hunt, right?
Yeah.
You duck hunt on ice a lot?
It's thin ice around here, so I mean it's not like crazy.
I'm no expert and I don't know this for a fact, but I've always heard over the 50 years of duck hunting that dew claws do help a dog in an icy, situation. It helps them climb up on it better. And I don't know why. I guess maybe it could. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, that's what I've heard.
I know that every European import I've ever seen has their dew claws.
Right. I think the Droths had their dew claws. I think it's, I just curious.
I think a lot of it has to do with like conspiracy theories. I mean, I don't know. Matt might be able to speak on it a little bit more because he's got a Bronco that has the dew claws, so he might be able to help out with that scenario a little bit.
I think historically they were seen as a liability, getting hung up on like a barbed wire fence type thing. I think that was like, one of the speculations as to why you do it, and then maybe after enough time, like dogs never really do that. And I mean, I don't know. I've left mine the last two breedings. I mean, just for the standard, I think, they're there for a reason. What is the reason? Maybe mounting applications and breeding potentially, but again, I think the reason why was they're a hazard out in the field type thing, and an extra nail to get impacted and infected.
Sure.
And of all the ones that you can remove, that's the one you can remove.
Right.
If you, I mean, scientific papers out there talk about how removing them, the dogs can develop arthritis more.
Yes.
But you can also see how some dogs, when they're running in certain situations, the dew claw really helps.
Okay.
And stuff. And you think about like African wild dogs, fox,
Yeah,
wolves.
sure.
I mean, all those wild canids.
Yep.
They have dew claws.
Yep. Nope. It was just kind of a surprise, and it was a question because I'd always thought they always got removed, and we did our first 2 litters we removed when I was with Tom Deckert. But yeah, I'm good with it. I was just wondering if kind of the norm it's changing to, or if it's just,
I think there is a change, and change is always difficult for some people, and I think you'll see people that have they've always removed dew claws, and they will continue to always remove dew claws because that's what they do.
Sure.
And
I think, and honestly, I feel like it's like a conspiracy thing. Like, do you want to or do you not? That's how I feel. Like, in a way, how I feel about it.
Sure.
Like, I mean, you do it or you don't do it. It's up to the breeder. I mean, in a way, it's up to the breeder.
Yep.
I don't know if that's right or wrong. I might be. If some breeders might do it, some breeders might not do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a dog from a different kennel, and she doesn't have dew claws. It saves me 2 nails to cut.
Yeah.
Which adds up to be about 30 seconds of time.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your inputs.
Well, all right, folks. I think we're gonna hold it. We've been on an hour and a half. Been some good discussion. Thanks for everybody's input. And I really enjoy these roundtables. I think they're nice that we do this. This is a good organization, and it's a good thing for everybody for members to be involved. So thank you everybody for participating. Anybody has anything before we close out, then I'll close the meeting.
One more thing, Jim.
Okay.
If y'all have topics or y'all have speakers that you think would be interesting for this format, and I mean, we're always looking for the next thing to talk about, and this started off as a gun dog discussion, and we wound up on dew claws, which I think is great. I mean, and I mean, I'm all about that kind of thing because I enjoy listening to the back and forth about things. But if anybody has any topics, y'all please reach out to us and let us know. We're here to serve our membership and each other. So, but I do appreciate everybody getting on tonight. And yes, Brent, my Bronco does have dew claws and he can use them.
I wouldn't say anything disrespectful.
I know that, Brent. I'm just answering your question. But and they are effective. I mean, he will grab your arm with his dew claw. So, but it just people were talking, so that's my little 2 cents on that.
Appreciate it.
Anyways, all of it is productive. So, anyways, it's always fun to debate. I mean, some people might not think of it as a good thing, and some people might think of it as a great thing.
Yep. Well, thank you guys.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and good night.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.